Hi, sophomores. So I just wanted to go over a few things for today. Our week 9 folder has everything that you will need in it for today, including a presentation on what you need to do and the web quest. Just a quick reminder that your final essay is due on Friday. So we want to make sure that we're using all of our time wisely. Furthermore, I do have in each hour, so whether you're first hour or fifth hour, a yellow compare contrast writing resources. And within that, I have the presentations for intro and conclusions, organizing and outlining your essay, the example from Little Red Riding Hood and Hansel and Gretel, raises A+, how to do that, a sample essay, transition words and phrases if you're looking for that, and a video on how to do raises A+. I do want to point out a couple of things, and I'm just going to use my sample essay for this. Okay, so I scroll down to the first body paragraph. We can see that I do start with a topic sentence at the very beginning and a transition word. Now, before I give my evidence, because my first topic sentence says that Gretel and Red experience insights, I want to give some context before my example. So when we're giving context, you want to think of a couple of different things. So these are a few questions that you can think about when adding context. So before a quote, think about who is speaking. To whom are they speaking, and what has happened before? Again, you are writing for someone who has read the book but maybe unfamiliar with it. That is going to be your target audience. So even though it might seem really obvious, you still need to say who and who the speaker is and what is going on in the story. So if we go back to that example again, in my first introduction, my first time I refer to something in the text, I am being very formal. So in Charles Perrault's story, Little Red Riding Hood, Red arrives at grandmother's house and she hears, and again, here I'm going to jump into my quote. So I quote directly, making sure that I punctuate appropriately. Anything that is my insertion shows up in these brackets, okay? So that lets the reader know that this was added by the writer, which is me. So she hears the big voice of the wolf, and she was at first afraid, but believing her grandmother had a cold and was hoarse, answered, "It is your grandchild, Little Red Riding Hood, who has brought you a little cake and a little pot of butter mother sends you." Notice that my punctuation does not go immediately after this sentence. In parentheses, I put Perrault 2, so that tells me the author and the page number, and then the period goes after that. That is how you should be doing your citations. Next, I need to explain this. So to go back again, here we have context before a quote, but we also have explaining after a quote. So some questions to consider are these three. Why is this important, or why is it significant? How does it prove the topic sentence? And why does it matter to the main character or main characters? So plural. So you have to really explain it. Again, even if it seems obvious, explain it. So I do that in this example. Readers see Red have a moment of hesitation and fear. This hesitation and fear is, in my opinion, her subconscious warning her she is in danger. Now keep in mind, you should not be putting in your personal opinion. So this is not a perfect example, and there would need to be editing done after. All right, so we're going to take a look next at this example. I'm going to make the frame a little bit wider, or try to. And so this is a good example, or well, an example, let's put it that way, of the paper and the rainbow review that I am asking you to do. So I'm just going to kind of go through and point out a few things, an example at least, so that you can see what you need to do on your example. on your paper when you do a peer review. So we did this in class on day 2. You'll notice that I have changed the heading. So instead of compare, contrast, or comparison paper, I made that a little more personalized, individualized for my paper. So now in this frame, we have we can see all of the words. So we start out with our introductory paragraph, and we start out with a scenario, a hook to kind of get into the paper and explain what's going on. And then we end with our thesis statement. So the thesis statement, we want to make sure that we highlight that. And for our purposes, I have decided to highlight those green for today. So this is my thesis statement, and both Little Red Riding Hood and Hansel and Gretel, both Red and Gretel, face similar coming-of-age elements in their insights and tests and maturation. So I want to go through and make sure that all of my topic sentences not only start with a transition word, which I'm going to highlight in orange, but that they follow the same order as my thesis statement. So to begin, I have first, I'm going to highlight that, I'll highlight it blue because that's what I have. Readers see Red and Gretel experience insight or epiphanies along their journey. So that is my topic sentence. Again, I'm going to go and highlight that green. I'm going to scroll down. Notice this first paragraph is long. That is totally fine. Then I have, in addition to experiencing epiphanies. So again, that's a transition phrase, and I'm going to highlight that blue. And I cannot move the second paragraph around. I can't make this the first one unless I change my transition word. So what I have effectively done is I have built each paragraph on the one that came before it. Okay, so both Red and Gretel face tests in their coming-of-age stories. I'm going to highlight that green. Whoops, wrong color. So sad. And then the last body paragraph, I have finally. I'm going to highlight that in blue. In addition to the epiphanies and tests. So again, I'm going to make that part blue as well because that builds off the paragraph that came before. The final coming of age element readers see in both Red and Gretel is their maturation. Both characters start out very innocent, but by the time the story reaches its resolution, both Red and Gretel have matured. Again, that is going to be green. So my topic sentences do in fact match the order in my thesis statement. So now I want to give my example. So I have to give, again, a little context, set it up. I'm pretending that my reader is unaware of either the stories, maybe they haven't read them or they need a refresher. I never want to assume that my reader knows what I'm talking about. So I have a very formal introduction giving some context. So in Charles Perrault's story, Little Red Riding Hood, Red arrives at her grandmother's house, and so that is my information, kind of some background information. So I'm just going to highlight that in red for right now. And then I have my quote. So I take this directly from the story. She hears the voice of the wolf, and she was at first afraid, but believing her grandmother had a cold and was hoarse, answered, "It is your grandchild, Little Red Riding Hood, who has brought you a cake and a little pot of butter mother sends you." And then I have my citation. So that is my evidence. I'm going to highlight that in yellow. Please note that there is a space here after my quote. I put the author's last name and the page number where the quote occurs in the story, the end quotation, the end parentheses, and then the period goes outside. Now I have to explain it. So again, this goes back to those questions like, why is this important? How does it prove the topic sentence? And why does it matter to the main characters? So then we can see my explanation. Readers see Red have a moment of hesitation and fear. This hesitation and fear is her subconscious warning her she is in danger. Now, earlier on, I had put in this hesitation and fear, in my opinion, is her subconscious warning her she is in danger. I removed that because in this paper, we want to avoid saying like, I think, I feel. We want to make it academic. So my explanation and my examples should prove what I'm saying. If they don't, then I need to add some more explanation. I need to go back and revise. So I continue saying she senses trouble before being able to fully process it. Quickly, Red brushes the warning aside and makes the excuse that because grandmother has a cold, her voice is hoarse. This is a logical assumption, but incorrect in this case. Red has put herself in mortal danger by ignoring this nagging feeling and entering the house. Her epiphany is fully realized later. So this is my explanation. I am going to highlight this pink. Okay, so now I need to either give more evidence, or if I'm moving on to my next example, again, I want to use a transition word. Okay, so another time readers see Red feel that nagging, that something might be wrong. So that is my transitional phrase. I'm going to highlight that. I believe I highlighted that blue. There we go. Then I want to give my example. Now, if I go back up, in my first example, I gave some background information. I want to make sure that I've done the same thing. So she realized something might be wrong. This is after she's entered grandmother's cottage and approached grandmother's bed. Red talks to grandmother, and her observations about her grandmother's eyes, ears, and teeth signal to the reader that something is wrong. So I need, and so again, later on, I document this. So right here, where she approaches grandmother's bed, that's my background information. So I need to maybe make that a little more clear, that I'm transitioning from background information to my evidence. So for right now, I am going to highlight my evidence, which is the next stuff, the next sentences, and next two sentences, and then I'm going to highlight that yellow. And then I have my explanation, but I'm going to put a little note here to myself. So I'm just going to go up, insert, and I'm going to insert a comment and write myself a note to make transition from context to evidence more clear. Okay, so I am going to do that. So that just, again, makes it a little bit easier when I go back to revise. Okay. All right. So then I go into my explanation. Again, I'm missing some pieces here as I'm highlighting. I'm looking and saying, okay, well, I have an explanation, but I also give more information, more evidence, and I am completely missing giving background information, and I need to go back and add that in. So by going through and highlighting, you can see what is missing and what you need to go back and fix. So by the time you're done, your paragraphs everything should be highlighted, and it should go in the exact same order. So you should see blue, then the green of the topic sentence, the background information, the evidence cited and explained. And so if it doesn't follow that exact formula, okay, minus maybe the topic sentence in each paragraph, you need to go back and make some changes. So If in doubt, ask. Good luck, everyone.